I would just like to say before we get into this video, I called it.
You got the Minnesota Timberwolves 44.5. I'm smashing the under.
I'm smashing the over on that one.
They got 42 last year.
Yeah, and that's what Cat out for majority of the season. I'm
smashing
Cat.
You're a Cat.
That's what Cat out for majority of the season, and them having D'Angelo Russell as their starting point guard for half the year.
Let me ask you a question. You believe in Cat?
Hmm?
You believe in
as
Cat?
as a number two next to Anthony? Yes.
In general, you believe in him?
Yes.
Okay.
The Minnesota Timberwolves have been one of the NBA's darkest franchises since their entire iteration. They have seen almost as many 60-loss seasons as playoff berths, 9 and 11 respectively, and they haven't really seen crazy team success, or at least past the first round, since 2003. This team's always been in the shadows, but with Anthony Edwards being drafted here a couple years ago, they probably saw a little light. But the recent Rudy Gobert trade has made people look at this franchise as if they are, again, not much better than what they were even in the KG days of building teams around their superstars. And even with them playing as well as they are now, a lot of people may have some reservations about how this affects their future with the second tax apron and they're paying all these guys and yada yada yada. Sometimes you just need a team that's going to win some games and really just light a fire under your main guys, since all of their main guys are locked up financially right now. And the Minnesota Timberwolves are 11-3, the second best team in the NBA right now behind the Boston Celtics wins-wise. They are a top half of the league offense. They were a little higher. I think they were top 10 before some teams took off offensively. And they are the best defense in the NBA. And it's no joke about how good that defense is. Rudy Gobert is leading a defensive player of the year run right now. And the Minnesota Timberwolves overall, the past couple of games after Cat struggled to begin the season, people clamoring for what they need to trade him, has been fantastic in the past, I would say, half their games this year after coming off a slow start, and has looked fantastic both offensively and defensively, to the point that when him and Ant both score 20 points, they're undefeated. This Minnesota Timberwolves team has looked amazing this year. And we just need to talk about how they're doing it and why I feel like not only can they keep this up, and it's not like other Timberwolves teams that, have started off great and petered off, and why I think this team is probably one of the most dangerous in the NBA. Let's start with the Minnesota Timberwolves are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA this season, or if not the best defensive team in the NBA. And that is coming from centering around Rudy Gobert. Of course, the 3-time defensive player of the year and the Stifle Tower has been absolutely amazing in the middle for them this year. Last year, he was getting a lot of boos and fans really didn't feel like he was worth what they gave up for him. And some people may even question even if now he's still worth what they gave up for him. And he was getting booed. Earlier last year, they beat the Miami Heat, I think, earlier in the season. But because of the first half he was getting booed. At the end of the year, he had that fight with Kyle Anderson on the bench and Minnesota lost. It was overall looking like people just didn't like him here, or his teammates just didn't like him. This year, it looks like the complete opposite. He is the center of everything for this team. Holding the paint down this year. Opponents are scoring only 42 points in the paint this season against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That ranks second in the NBA. But they're also forcing about a top half in the league in three-point attempts while holding teams to the second worst percentage from 3 in the NBA. Running guys off the line, but keeping guys out of the paint, forcing long mid-range jumpers, aka the perfect offense for the NBA. And even though guys are getting better and better at shooting mid-range jumper again, the NBA is coming back, it still is the way you want to send guys. It's still the least valuable shot in basketball. And the Minnesota Timberwolves are taking advantage of that this year. And while they do have great block numbers this season, they don't really rank high in any crazy category. They're about middle of the league in opponents' fast break points, opponents' second chance points, and all of that. Those stats, they're not really keeping teams out of transition or keeping them off the glass or things like that. But they are really just standing up and guarding, contesting every single shot and holding teams to the lowest field goal percentage in the entire NBA this year. That's something to not sniff at. And right now, when you look at this team's defensive capabilities, you have guys like Mike Conley, who's always been a great defender. Even at his older age, he can still be a very good team defender. Anthony Edwards, that's turning into one of the best two-way players in the NBA. Jaden McDaniels, that I don't know how he didn't make All-NBA first team defense last year, and is proving that he needs to make it this year, even though he's out for 2 to 3 weeks. Prayers up for him. And Cat, who has punched way above his weight of what people thought he was defensively. And Again, I'm a guy that believed in Cat specifically, and he's the next guy we need to talk about. One of the biggest question marks for this team was Karl-Anthony Towns and how he would be able to reintegrate himself after only playing 29 games last year. Last year, the Timberwolves with their lineup of Cat and Gobert weren't looking the greatest. They had one of the best defenses in the NBA, but their offense was absolutely piss poor. The spacing was absolutely awful. Nobody really wanted or knew how to pass to Gobert in the pick and roll or throw lobs. Last year, Cat was one of the only guys that was trying to get him really involved in the offense, even when he was there, until Mike Conley got there and they traded D'Angelo Russell. But this year, it's a stark difference. Their offense looks absolutely amazing with both of these guys on the floor, sporting a 117 offensive rating this year, and a 7.3 net rating, still being one of the best defenses in the NBA, simply because Cat is not only an underrated defender in the NBA. I would like to think a all-star, one of the most skilled shooting bigs, one of the best scorers, post scorers, three-point shooters, and mid-range shooting in the NBA. A team would miss that for an entire season and not be as great. People wanted to push this narrative that the Timberwolves need to trade Cat to be a contender. The Timberwolves need to find a way to move off from Cat and find a suitable 3-and-D guy for that, somebody that can fit in their scheme and maximize Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards. And because of their money problems and trying to stay with a second apron, you want to get rid of some salary, and Cat obviously is making some of the most money on this team. But I would like to think that, again, yes, missing one of your best players is one of the worst things, and Cat is still young and he is still serviceable in this league. He still can find ways to be really, really effective. And he's doing just that, sporting some of the best defense he's played his entire career while fitting into the role of the second offensive star on this roster. He is just doing it perfectly. And I understand Minnesota Timberwolves fans when they're mad when they hear people say after years of dealing with purgatory, having a team this good and you telling them they need to change something to be contenders. I would be pissed too, because this team is playing just fine and playing great with these guys in the lineup. Now, there's some questions to be made about the competition. You played the Pelicans without Zion twice, Golden State on a back-to-back, Philadelphia right after they got out of OT game without Joel Embiid against Cleveland, and the Miami Heat when they didn't have Jimmy Butler. There's a whole lot of things you can say about this record right now and how maybe it's skewed, but I don't think you can say that when you look at how well they played against teams like the Boston Celtics. They are here to play. This team is fully legit. This defense is this great. This team comes out night in and night out ready to compete against anybody, and you just love to see it. But offensively for this team, while they're a middle-of-the-pack offense, I can't get over Anthony Edwards. He's actually taken the leap. After all of the speculation of can he actually do it, yada, 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 maybe it's too much hype. Anthony Edwards has come in averaging 26 points per game, 5.9 rebounds, 5.1 assists, a career high in that, 1.4 steals on 47, 39, 85 splits. The kid is just one of them ones. At 22 years old, putting up these type of numbers should tell you just how good he's going to be for years to come in his career. One of the most dynamic two-way players in the NBA, one of the most athletic and best scoring guards in the NBA. And this season, he has fully and greatly, I think, accepted the mid-range jumper as a full part of his game now. His three-point attempts are down this year to 6.8, but his mid-range attempts are very much up, and his attempts at the rim are very much up. And he's shooting career highs. Last year, he was only shooting 38% from 10 to 16 and 35% from 16 to 3-point range. That's up to 48% from 10 to 16 and 50% this year, all while taking a lot more, even doubling his amount of attempts from 10 to 16 and upping his attempts from 16 to 3. He's becoming a fully well-rounded scorer, and you can't handle him in any real way. His mid-range pull-up is absolutely one of the best in the NBA, and you can't really stop him from getting to the rim when he has everything to his disposal. I just love the way they use him on this team, and I love the way he's actually accepting every single role, being the leader for this team, and really showing that fire night in and night out, accepting guarding some of the best players like you saw him lock up Jason Tatum, accepting being some of the best offensive player on this team, and putting teams away in the clutch like he did against the Nuggets. He is one of the best players in the NBA, and he deserves every single praise he gets. And if these numbers do keep up, even if they get a little bit better, because I do think he can be a 27, 28 point per game scorer this year, and the Minnesota Timberwolves keep up this level of winning, or at least close to it, where they win maybe 50, 55 games, you should see his name in MVP combos. And then you just got to look at the little things for this team. Kyle Anderson has been great for this roster after all the things that happened close to the end of last year. You have guys like Naz Reid that signing him for a $42 million 3-year contract was an absolute freaking steal. shooting 50% from the field, 40% from three, averaging 12.4 points per game and 4 rebounds, and being great offensively and defensively for this team. Jaden McDaniels, again, who should have been all defensive player, is back again this year, shooting 58% from the field, 38% from three, unlimited shot attempts, which I would hope he gets more involved in the offense, but it is what it is. And again, being one of the best, if not the best perimeter defender in the NBA, and Mike Conley being the perfect point guard for this team, being very efficient, being the greatest connector for this roster, and being the guy that helped Anthony Edwards get that point guard mentality to find ways to get Gobert and his teammates involved in the offense and making a more complete player. Something I don't think D'Angelo Russell would have been able to do if he stayed here. Overall, this Minnesota Timberwolves team has been fantastic. They've done a lot of great things this year. You can make a fuss about their schedule and how they're doing against actual teams, and they're not getting favorable odds on back-to-backs and yada yada yada. But at the end of the day, the league is talented. If they lost those games, you'd have said they're frauds. They win in games that they're supposed to win, and they're putting teams away that they're supposed to put away. Winning these early games in the season can give you a rhythm, and good in the rest of the year, you can be even better than you are now. So even when you play those teams and even playing fields, you're just better than them now. This team is very legit. I called it earlier in the year, and I can't wait to see what they're able to do later in the year in the playoffs. With that being said, this is a